I can see an innate desire, sword in hand, warriors side by side. I can feel it, it burns like fire. Worlds collide, an unstable landscape, side by side. But that's what this man thinks. Be it might, and unlikely allegiance. We will fight because that's the best defense. No turning back, for such is our path. It's clear as we ride against a dark empire. By my soul, may the last thing they hear be the roar of this raging fire. Listen, be the savagery mindset. Not today, we'll let loose and find it. Brutal will define our reaction. Rip out the throat of each one in their faction. No turning back, for such is our path. This day we find the glory.
Gooding Services has a bundle for all budgets. You can be fully protected with emergency response for just $49.99.
And we are back in the fray. This is, of course, Braxcast Live once again. I don't number these episodes, so because why would I? The numbered episodes are what I record. But anyways, we're doing Braxcast Live once again. It is Friday. Hopefully you guys had a good week. I think every week I have a good week, even if I have problems or things that I would rather not go through. It's all for the glory of God, but that's a whole other thing. We're going to be talking Great War Separation 3 today. And of course, I see Garfield in the chat. I think everybody else here is just working except for Ram. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you had a good week. Of course, we do have, like I said, the Great War Separation number 3 launched this week. I thought it was launching Thursday, ended up launching on Wednesday, and over 2,000 books sold, heading close to that 70K mark. It'll probably make $100,000. This is going to go, it seems like, for basically the rest of the year, and it's going to fulfill at the beginning of next year, Q1 2026. This is, of course, continuing the story of the Great War Separation. We're going to have Plessy Sanders, Brian Solari, and Jacob Silman, who's, of course, Isom's father. We see that in Great War Separation number 2, where I believe where Jacob is called to the front lines and he's leaving the family, and Isom has to be, or Avery at that time, has to be the man of the house. So it is definitely exciting. We're getting into the climactic portion of this story. This is a 4-issue run. And we're going to be in issue number 3, so I would say a lot's going to go down. These first 2 issues have been really just establishing a lot of Great War Separation, and now we're going to go into like really getting into the meat and potatoes of this. So I'm really excited for Great War Separation number 3. This is going to be a really foundational story, and once this story is completed, and hopefully they'll release an omnibus for it. I wouldn't say an omnibus, just like a meaty trade paperback. You probably could call it an omnibus. But basically just one book that collects all 4 issues. That's going to be a fantastic book. That's going to be a really good starting off point. I imagine that'll be out probably around this time next year. We'll have that in the hands of people, like where you'll be able to buy it. So that is a very, very exciting thing for us to be able to see, right? But for now, of course, we're getting in on this as the issues are releasing. And of course, this is going to be, I would say, definitely quite interesting. But we've got, it seems like this character here. I definitely love like I don't say, but definitely like the guerrilla warfare aspects of this. This really reminds you like war on terror sort of stuff. So I really like the vibe. I like the aesthetic of it because this is all taking place in Texas. Like Corpus Christi, places like that. Let's see. John Longbox is saying, breaking news, the Patriarch defeats the Alpha Core. I wouldn't say, I mean, I like the Patriarch, John, but there's no way in a 3v1 situation, like if you got Brian Solari and Braxwell against the Patriarch, he's not winning. And the way you've talked about your character and the impression I got from reading Father's Day, which is I would recommend you guys picking up Heroic Tales number 1. Of course, number 2, I believe, is shipping out this, it's shipping out now because John was saying he got it, the copies in, he's shipping it out. I ordered a copy, so I will be reviewing it this month. I need to catch up on I've been saying this for like the past 2 or 3 months at this point. Like I have so many reviews, and I really need to like sit down tomorrow and actually read like some books and get the reviews out, so that way I'm ready for like more Rippaverse stuff. Of course, John's books. Yes, it's being fulfilled now, I imagine. Yeah, that's what you meant to say. And of course, John, if you aren't at work, you can DM me on Twitter. I can send you the link to this, but usually are working at this time because you're working nights now, which that's a bit brutal. But if you have the free time, which you probably don't, you're always welcome to hop on. And we can chill your stuff because I absolutely love it. But anyways, point that I'm trying to make in the Patriarch v Alpha Core is that Patriarch would lose because you read A Father's Day, and he's definitely got a lot going against him. Like he's not this like perfect guy. Yeah. So you are at work. But he's not like this super powered, like Superman type of character. So that's the impression that I get. Alpha Cores, John, like Marine Corps. Actually, it is Alpha Core, CORE. Again, we're going to go to the yeah, or unless like I'm seeing PB correct, but I have you guys can hear my oh my god, because it's yeah. Ooh, we got it here. Alpha Core, CORE. It's not Alpha Core, CORP, like the Marine Corps. But John's at work, so I'll forgive him not being able to type correctly. And he was a very, very nice guy, or he still is a nice guy. Of course, we've got the Merc Lounge. I don't believe I've seen you before. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully, you enjoy your time here. Of course, we've got PB. I've seen PB a couple of times in the chat, so that is always fantastic to see someone who returns, for whatever reason. Yes. Um, but yes. So like I'm saying, like yeah, John was right in saying Alpha Core. It's just spelt as one word. But yeah, that's not it's not Alpha Core like the Marine Corps. Which if I were to join any branch of the military, I would want to be like a Marine. Um, and I don't know, there are some soldiers that they'll let them grow out the beards. Because like if I'm like this big imposing man with like a Belgian Malinois and like military gear, and I'm like in some desert town, and I'm just like yelling like get out of the way, clear out, and they don't understand what I'm saying, it gets really intimidating. That's I remember seeing a short like that. Um, but I don't want to do the military. It's just like the baser aspect of like you get to really toughen up and you get to be around a bunch of other like dudes who want to just like act tough and crap, but a lot of it is really juvenile at the end of the day. And then of course like the whole thing with the military is just like, let's go and bomb Yemen so we can, bomb all the children in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, so we can get their oil. Yeah, only special forces are allowed to wear beards, and that's what I would want to do. And I know like the intention is like it makes you more intimidating if you're special for if you have the beard, and that's why special forces can. Um, but yeah, no, but for me, I wouldn't want to join the military. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm 27, so like I think I'm actually like past the age to like get into like training to be spec ops because they want you to be like 22, 23 at the oldest. So like I'm a bit past that age where they would consider me for that, I think. Yeah, unless like, I got into it and then I was like continuing to be it on for a couple more years. Because it really is like being like an adult film star in the sense that like you have a very short window of opportunity to be in that. It's those units in special operation dudes that can grow their beards, not just special forces. Let's see, Joker, the military that you're mocking is secure the safety of the nation, the very safety that allows you to mock the military. Yes, I can understand that perspective, and I'm not saying that the military is completely worthless. And when I mock the military, it's not me going against the individual soldiers themselves. It's more or less the institution. Really, what we live. Why am I talking about this on a comic book stream? Well, we live in this American empire where it's less about the military existing to control or to protect the borders of the nations and more or less to be the global world police, because America replaced Britain, the British Empire, as the global superpower after World War II. And we have been in that role ever since, and it has not been good for society, and it has not been good for this country. I mean, we just look at, you've listened to the Hump Day Potpourri with Doc and I, and we documented this over the course of the past 3 years we've been doing that show, of just all of the ways that our culture has declined. So yes, physically, we're safe, quote unquote, but I wouldn't even say that's the case depending on where you live. In New York City, Los Angeles are very violent places, and that's because of all these problems that we have on the home front. But anyways, I don't want to step on anybody's toes or anything like that. But I do have my issues. It's not with this, like I said, it's not with the soldiers because I respect them. And I think a lot of them are doing it for the right reasons. It's the institution itself, and it's the geopolitical motives for why the American military is the way that it is. And that's a whole other discussion. To be fair, Great War Separation does deal with American military and foreign policy, so it does fit with the theme of this stream. And Garfield is saying that so the military isn't worthless in any way. If you disagree, look at the world we live in. Your apathy and attitude towards the military is typical of those who never served. Well, I would think that's fair. But yeah, I wouldn't say like apathy towards it entirely. But my thing is like there's like it's nearly like $1 trillion that we spend on the military. It's unsustainable to put the amount of money that we put into the military. And when so much of it is really just going to things that don't benefit us at all, the military really ought to just be the National Guard mostly, and just be protecting America like on the home front. And we should be spending most of the money that we're spending on all this overseas world building, like 90 something plus military bases across the world. Like, why do we have bases in Japan and Germany and all across the Middle East when that money could be spent here in America, like helping Americans actually thrive? Because you've got a generation of people that can't buy homes. You've got so many people unemployed. You've got so many people on the streets, strung out on drugs, and we're sending billions and billions of dollars of equipment to like the UAE and Yemen and Syria and Iraq and all these places so we can protect democracy. I just do not think that that is something that's good for society. You're welcome to disagree, PB, and I know like there is a lot of people who have this mindset that we need to be involved, especially if you're a bit older. You remember the Cold War. There's this policy of containmentism where we had to be this bulwark against communism, and now that bulwark is being against radical Islamic terrorism. Well, there's some legitimacy to that idea. Like I said, it's not the way most people see it. It's more like America first, and then it's gone to America only, being full on isolationist, which I think is more or less the way to go, and just the way that America's policy was before World War One. When after Wilson wrote his, I forgot exactly what they were called, but basically his way of wanting World War, the Treaty of Versailles to go. I can't remember, like the 14 resolutions or whatever it was called. But after that, we became far more involved in the global sphere. And then with World War II, like I said, we replaced Britain as the global superpower, and that really sealed the deal. Let's see. So the very society that you live in was secured by the military. You dishonor and insult the men who died. So you can sit here and insult soldiers. I'm not insulting PB. I think what you're not understanding with me is that I'm not insulting the men who served and died, especially like the ones, the American Revolution, War of 1812, the ones who are actually defending the sovereignty of this nation. And of course, you've got the soldiers who, during the Great War of Terror, the Gulf War, World War II, World War One, who got, I think World War II, World War One, definitely more so. Like you got men with 1,000-yard service, lost their arms, all these sorts of things. It's a very honorable thing to do. My criticism is the modern day institution that takes the desire of these young men to be patriotic, to serve their country, and ship them halfway across the world to fight battles and wars that do absolutely nothing for the home front and absolutely ruins them. I mean, just look at the amount of suicides amongst veterans, and this is what happened during Vietnam. It absolutely ruined a generation of men. So many men that died in Vietnam, so many men that were absolutely unable to adjust to regular society, and then you had so much, conflict on the home front over that war, because it was a completely pointless war that we fought because we didn't win. Vietnam became one communist country. Saigon fell very famously. And you just have all of these young men that were completely destroyed, that had no lives to go back to, and they were seen as being part of this evil regime. And it's the same thing with the global war on terror, with Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran. We would have been much better off giving these men defensive positions on the home front and having them be members of their society, building families in America, so that way we could actually have a future for our country, instead of like I said, having them build the empire abroad. And I think Mike Has Bad News says it costs a lot to maintain an empire. I've heard your argument from before you were born. It's politicians, not the military. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just that, like I said, it's the military as an institution, right? And what makes the military like as an institution is influenced by the politicians and the deep state, not the individual soldiers themselves. So yes, I know I was born in '98, and these problems have been in existence before I was born. So I'm not the first person to notice these sorts of things. Let's see. Yeah, don't forget Afghanistan. 20 years fighting a pointless war against the Taliban, who still control Afghanistan, and they still control Afghanistan now, and they have billions of dollars of our weapons. Thanks, Joe. But exactly, this is something that people have been seeing for years and years. Vietnam happened before I was born, right? All these sorts of things. So Mike's saying I served in the military for 21 years, and I agree more with you. Um, I'm assuming Mike is saying that about me. I appreciate that. Anyways, military industrial complex war is profit. Yes, this is what Eisenhower warned against back in the 50s. Let's see. So the military is an institution. It's not the problem. That's an excuse because it's easy to attack the military instead of politicians. Well, I'm not for politicians either. I'll be very critical of politicians. And yes, it's the politicians that are the ones who are doing these things. But like Garfield said, we have this military industrial complex where there is a perverse economic incentive to engage in this global empire building. And that is the, corporations that lobby the politicians that encourage the military to keep acting this way as an institution. Like again, when the Pentagon has like what $1 trillion in counting errors, you cannot convince me that as an institution, the military is something that makes sense or should be respected. Again, the individual soldiers, yes, but as an institution, the people who are leading it, the people who are running it, do not have the interests of those soldiers at heart, and that is an absolute tragedy. But anyway, yeah. So there was a genocide in Vietnam after we left. We were fighting the bad guys. We lost because we lost heart. We defeated ourselves. Yeah, and also it was something that we were going in like fighting a very like conventional war, and they had the let's see. So you don't respect the military, typical. I mean, I don't know. If you want, I've tried to explain myself, PB, and if you don't like how it is, but yes, like as an institution, I don't respect the institution of the military, right? It's just how it is, and I can't because of how it's run and the results, not only for America, right? Again, I would say there was a necessity for stuff like the National Guard. We had the American Revolution, we had the War of 1812, but the men who were fighting in that military, like the the militiamen, the Continental Congress, the army that Washington led, and the army that the men slightly after him led, is a radically different institution than what exists today. And I would think it would be dishonest to say that it's exactly the same. And as guys, we got Zay Comics in the chat who's congratulating John on starting fulfillment, which is an absolute also thing. So let's see. So what's your answer? No military. Let's just all stiff pixie dust as our way of life goes away. No, PB. I'm saying that we should just have the National Guard and NORAD, and just have a military that is very much focused on defense of the home front. Get rid of the military bases. Stop bombing the Middle East for their oil, and stop trying to be the global world police, because it has not worked. We've been doing this since like nearly a century at this point, closer to a century than not, and it has not worked. That's my main argument. So I'm not saying we need to get rid of everything and be like hippie pacifists on the anarcho commie commune or something like that. I'm saying that we should just have the National Guard and a military that is much more domestic and isolationist, like we had before World War One. But that's not going to happen because there's just such an economic incentive to pushing all this stuff. You can't get Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or all these other military companies have billions and billions of dollars of contracts with the federal government to stop what they're doing. And of course, the politicians are the ones who are making money off of this. The military should be stationed on our borders, protecting us from foreign nationals seeking to invade our country through the drug cartels instead of the Mediterranean. There's that. See, I can't accept attacking the military. That's what you're saying. Isolationism is what you want. Yeah, I would say isolationism is the best thing at this point. I have absolutely no interest in the. I would say I'm not like sympathetic to the problems of in the global stage. But America has absolutely no business as a country meddling themselves in these affairs, and we've just made things worse. I honestly, if you want to go and say the military as an institution has been a net positive for global society, you can make that argument, but you're going to, I will not be the only person that disagrees with you if that is your opinion. And I do not know how we've gotten into this, but like Garfield said, the Great War of Separation is, it's about military, it's about war. So it is, like the leftists like to say, you chuds don't want comics in your politics in your comics. And I would say to that, I think it's a bit simplistic. What we love is having political themes in comics, and then it leads us to think more critically and have interesting discussions about like we were having. Even though I think it got a bit, maybe contentious. But if you're on Twitter, PB, yeah, I mean, if you want to, I could send you the link, and you want to debate me on this. Let's see. Another youngster attacking the very military that secures your way of life. Shameful. Let's see. So I did predict last week this would be launching this week, if you remember. I don't particularly remember that. Let's see. But the whole thing is that what I'm saying, like PB, I am 27, so I'm like the oldest of the Gen Z generation, and I've got a much better standing than most of my generation, I would say, in terms of like the financial aspects and everything. But you have to realize that the way of life argument that you're going to try and use for me and everybody else, while again it's leagues better to live in America than basically anywhere else, and I'm very grateful for that. So like I said, there is a history, and the military is a part of it, but a lot of doomer nihilistic people who have mountains of debt, who have no purpose in life. So when you say the way of life, and that way of life is absolutely meaningless and it has nothing, it's not an argument that's going to work on younger people, because they have no societal investment, because they're not having kids, they don't have any faith in God, they don't have any greater purpose other than pleasuring themselves. It's a very tragic thing. So and again, I think Mike has bad news, is saying PB, I served in the military. The military isn't being used to protect America as a whole. It's being used to protect the interests of a select few Americans. And I think that's a very succinct way of saying it. And that's basically what I'm putting, is that we have this global American empire. And that is what the military is serving first and foremost. And that is the issue that I have. It's not that I have an issue with the individual soldiers, or the fact that you've had, rows and rows of, tombstones and graveyards full of men that have given the ultimate sacrifice to defend freedom and have a good way of life, for their children, their grandchildren, and great grandchildren. And that is and the thing is that with the way our society is now, I was just watching some videos of some World War II veterans, like one British man who is just basically in shambles over the state of his country, saying, it's not what my fellow soldiers died for, is for the country to end up like that, right? So when you say that the way of life that existed to protect the way of life, right? Argument, it doesn't work, because like, what way of life is there? Where it's been completely shattered. Sure, it's not, living in North Korea, but like Garfield was saying, most Americans can't buy a house anymore. Globalization has ruined America. Billions to Ukraine and Israel, and band-aids for homeless veterans. Exactly. There is not a good state of the domestic home front, and that it just hasn't been the case. But while, like I said, pouring billions in Ukraine, sending all this money to Israel, having AIPAC meddling in our politics, having, like I said, over 90 military bases across the world, and doing all of this nonsense on the other side of the planet, while you've got homeless people all across the streets. You've got people overdosing on fentanyl every day. You've got a generation of people that can't afford to buy homes and start families. And you've got this deep cultural rot where people don't even want to do that, even if they could, because they just want to pleasure themselves. They just want to gooing out all day and all this other nonsense. So when did the British fight for America? No, other side of the fence. The point I'm making is well, I guess you could say World War II, because the British were instrumental in defeating the Axis. Although I think more critically looking at World War II, the Axis, again, the Allies and the Axis, wasn't like this strict good versus evil. They were both not the best. They both had their issues. And we'll go back to full screen here. Let's see. Yeah, that wasn't for America though. Yeah, but the point I was making wasn't that the British were fighting for America. It was that the British were fighting for themselves, right? And the argument is that PB was making with me, and I'm not sure if he's still in the chat. If like I angered him, I apologize, but I'm just going to stick by what I say. Is that I'm disrespecting the military because I'm a young guy who's never served, and I am denigrating the military that has secured my way of life. And the argument I'm making is that there's a soldier in Britain, World War II soldier, who fought to protect that way of life. And then he's lamenting the fact that that way of life is basically gone, right? And I think that's something that people feel is that the way of life that was fought for by the military is gone. And then you see all this corruption in the military as an institution. It's just gone away. And that's the thing there. All the corruption in this military is there with the fact that there is this way of life. So when you hear this stuff, it just sounds very didactic and moralizing instead of like a genuinely good patriotic message. But anyways, sorry if I stepped on anybody's toes there. Like again, I've got a lot of opinions about that. But anyways, Great War of Separation series is awesome. I agree. Merc Lounge, it certainly is a really cool comic book series. So let's see. I would say that the American military does discourage any potential invaders. Yeah, no, I certainly would say that, Mike. I say it's a good thing. But you wouldn't really need that. You don't need to have like a billion, or not even a billion. A billion would be that's like child's play compared to like the near $1 trillion we spend on the military. So you could have the same amount of efficacy in terms of deterring foreign invaders, especially if you restructure the military to be much more isolationist rather than expansionist. But that's a whole other discussion. But I feel like this has been the theme of it. It's been me ranting about the military. How far along is Great War of Separation? So, Great War of Separation, other side of the fence. And nice to see you again. I haven't scared you off. I might have scared PB off, which is, again, if he doesn't like me, I think that's understandable. So, Great War of Separation has gone 2 issues. So it's halfway done. The third issue is in its pre-order stage right now. It's going to fulfill early next year, Q1 2026. And then once we've got that third issue, the next will be the 4th issue until and the next will be the 4th issue, and that'll be the end of the series. So we got 2 more issues left. So we got 1 more in pre-order, and then the next one will be the last one. So I'd say we're basically like, I don't know, 60% of the way done. If you want to, because we got 50% out of it actually read, and we're in the stage of getting it pre-ordered, and number 3 is in the pre-order stage. So I've got it ordered. I just don't have it yet, but eventually I will. Let's see. How till I get blocked? How far along is Great War Separation? It's like, is he saying till I get blocked? Well, other side of the fence, you keep like coming in the way that you do, and the way all the interactions. I'm not going to block you. Other people might, but that's not going to be me. So yeah, the way you been in the chat has not given me a reason to block you. Mike has bad news saying we're so mad about the military. Maybe we should see Great War Separation. Yes, I would love Great War Separation. I would love New Hampshire to become its own country. I'm so ready for that, man. That make things, because then I wouldn't have to pay federal income tax or Social Security. Oh boy. And then like all the commies can just go down to Mass, man. Most of them live in the seacoast anyway, so they're pretty close to Mass. They could go to like Vermont if they felt like it, because full of commies there. Like Bernie Sanders and the Ben and Jerry's guys, I believe. Let's see. Dick and Vito show is dead. He has nowhere else to go. But my show is like, it's not. I'm not sure it's a lot. It's just like non-existent at Garfield. Like I've got my audience there. Let's see. New Hampshire. Don't send them to Mass, right? Yeah. No. No. Wow. New Hampshire is going down. Go to Texas instead. Yeah. I actually thought about moving to Texas. Uh, I was like, well, I could move to Texas and I could work in the Rippaverse warehouse. Like this is something I legitimately thought about doing. But then I decided to move to New Hampshire. I'm actually glad that I did that because I really do like it up here. But yes, oh yeah. So New Hampshire, don't send them to Matt. We have enough. So you live in Mass. Yeah, I could understand. Yeah, Massachusetts. Like if you're like someone who is like slightly freedom minded in Massachusetts, I feel really bad for you because it's full of commies. But that's the reason why I didn't move to Massachusetts. Like I go to Methuen pretty regularly. So I go to Massachusetts pretty regularly, but I would not live in Massachusetts. Let's see. That's the final speech in Great War of Separation 2, Chef's Kiss. Yes, I think all of it is pretty good. Of course, like that one scene, everybody loves Bussy Sanders. It's like the thing to invading Connecticut. And let's see. Don't. It's chill. Okay. Uh, let's see. But anyways, but yes, I would love New Hampshire to become its own country. I think that would be very entertaining. That's basically what the Free State Project is trying to do. They're not really going to succeed in that. But I don't know. The Free State Project, that's kind of what got me up here. So I was a very staunch libertarian. I still kind of am. I'm less so now, more focused on just being a good Orthodox Christian, although that's not going to work out for me because I'm not, man. I'm going to be the worst example of a Christian. Like I'll be the fakest one you ever met, but I'm going to try at least be somewhat genuine, right? And that's much more important to me than any sort of political ideology or even being a patriot, right? Because it's God first and then everything else after that, including your country, which is one of the reasons why I was critical of it before. Of course, being a staunch libertarian naturally inclines yourself being critical of the military, but it's like I am very willing to not see the allure, the patriotism arguments that people make for the military. And I that's what the military relies on. Like it's what recruiters rely on to get, guys my age into the military. And that's the whole thing there. But what I really do like about Chuck Dixon's writing for Great War of Separation, I have a friend who can't say New Hampshire properly and ends up saying New Hampshire. Live in New Hampshire. Let's see. Yeah, Great War of Separation shows us what what caused Texas to secede from the U.S. Let's see. So yeah, what even happened to Great War of Separation really is a story of how Texas became its own country in the context of the Rippaverse. Now, if we have again, I'm going to be super freaking professional here, and we're going to get, if I can find the Great War of Separation book here, because I got Saints and Sinners, we got Great War of Separation. This is number 2, and this is number 1. So we've got it right here. I think you guys might not be able to hear me all that well. I think, yeah, Student of God. Man, I didn't share with all my peeps in the Twitter DMs deep group DMs I am in. So this is Great War Separation number 2, and this is Great War Separation number 1. And as you can see, so the map hasn't, really changed. So this is the map. So the map is in the process of changing. I'm not sure if you can see it, but of course you can see Texas is part of the United States. So you've got United States. You guys can't really see it, but anyways, Texas and Oklahoma is part of the United States. You've got basically the Eastern Bloc. You've got Greater Florida, the Mid-Southern Alliance, and Bromhouse, which is like the Western. So basically, Texas and Oklahoma are part of the U.S. But it's already fractured. So you've got like several countries that exist in the Rippaverse on the North American continent, and that is the context in which the Great War Separation starts. And you have this conflict where you've got the Texas National Guard killing cartel members. And then this leads to a chain of events where there is basically an all-out war because Texas wants to be able to defend itself and the United States wants to oppose its authority. And then you just have this all-out war between the United States government and Texas. And then this is what is the Great War of Separation. And then, of course, the first issue is basically establishing that conflict. And then the second issue is introducing Solari and his team of Excepts into the fray. And then number 3 is going to basically just be exploring that further. And we're going to have more conflict in that. So, of course, what we are seeing like right here, I loved one of the things I said about, especially the first issue, I would say, is that there's just all this like geopolitical concepts in Great War of Separation that are very analogous to the real world. So again, you've got like war crime, 200 prisoners executed, lone state slaughter, right? So like stuff like that. And again, it's being talked about like on the news, like, you know, in INN, it's like a CNN sort of thing. So it just feels like this is a real grounded story. So let's see. Wonder what happened in Canada to make it all black. Let's see. No, I'm good. So I think, you know, it's just focusing on America. Canada's probably still its own country, although I'm not like the most in depth on that lore there. Or I'm not sure if that's even been explained yet. I'm sure it will come in time. Let's see. So Mike saying you're lost. So yeah, if you don't want to, if you're not interested in Great War Separation, that's perfectly okay. But man, I'm not sure if Student of God, if I shared anything with, had it shared with Student of God. But let's see. Actually, I think Doc is my co-host of Humte Potpourri. So military members not knowing their country was founded on the idea of the general public being the defense and not a standing army is evidence of brainwashing. Yes. So yes, the original like, you know, the original idea was this country being made of like militiamen, like the Minutemen, and these were like local guys that would just have their muskets. And when they were called out, it was supposed to be like in a minute or so, you would actually defend. And this was to like defend your town, right? This wasn't like you're going to go to like Egypt and go assault the Ottoman Empire. Of course, you know, you would have privateers and stuff like that, but that was to facilitate like global trade. And that was like limited to an extent. So yeah, there was some like, I would say there was a geopolitical aspect to it, but mostly it was a very isolationist movement. Of course, you were going to trade to get sugarcane and tobacco and spices and all these sorts of things. Well, not necessarily tobacco, because you could grow tobacco in the South. But yes, I think that's a very apt point that Doc made. My co-host of Humte Potpourri, I saw him on Twitter post that. So you must be watching on Twitter, which I do appreciate. Let's see. So hearing people talk about it is okay, but you got our biases built in. Yeah, no, I think it's all good. I think it's all good. So I might have turned PB off to being a fan of mine, which honestly I can understand. And I can honestly understand, like, because I'm 27, so I'm a young guy, and if you're like, you know, in your 40s, 50s, you're like, why do you want to hear this like guy drone on about like why the military is so bad and stuff like that? So I can understand that. But Merck is saying I did a story breakdown of Great War Separation 1 and 2 in case you don't want to get the books, but I recommend you go and get them. I already have them. I reviewed both of them. So, but yeah, that's a great thing. I'm glad you did that. Let's see. So PB was ready to pull the trigger on me. Yeah, I think he was. But like, you know, I'm strapped as well, but I don't think I would win. I don't think I'd win in a firefight. So, but that just is what it is. So you're not going to be able to, you know, if you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing nobody. So that's just the thing there. I was talking to the other side of the fence, Joker. Yeah, I figured you were. Let's see. Yeah, people are too sensitive. It's okay to disagree. Yes, I 100% agree. That it's okay to disagree, and that's the thing. And I always try to be respectful with it. So I wasn't like, I'm never going to be like, oh man, you're so stupid for not thinking the way I do about everything. Ho 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 ho. It's a really immature way of going about things. It's like, Nick Fuentes is like 5 years younger than me. And that's his style of commentary. And of course, a lot of it's very bombastic with all the things that he says. And it works for him because he's got a big audience. And I'm just, I've got you guys and you guys like to watch me. But like, I'm not a very notorious person. Let's see. You should. It's kind of fun. I don't know. I suppose it is, and it would certainly be more effective if I was bombastic and I was just like denigrating people. But it's just not the right way to act, and it's not what I want to be doing. In online or in real life or anything like that. It's not how I want to act, and I don't know. I'm definitely much more willing to be. I don't know, like I think I'm more like because I'm more sociable. Like when I'm live streaming because it's like a parasocial thing. Because like I don't know, I'm a very awkward introverted person. And if people feel that in like any sort of real life interaction I have, especially when I'm at work, because I like to try to be serious. And I guess I just end up looking like this, uptight, miserable person. Which I got to work on. In terms of like working. So yeah, especially in fandom, you have to express yourself. Going back and forth is okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, Andy's a fan of Stalin. Hard to take that seriously. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I heard that, and yeah, no, that's such. I'm not sure if he's saying that for a meme. But even like it's such a stupid thing to say as a meme. Like, oh, I'm a Stalin fan. Like the guy that like he was like a genocidal maniac, and he was a complete atheist, and he absolutely like ruined Russia as a country culturally. And I'd say it still really hasn't recovered in a lot of ways. In some ways, it can you can consider it, but I don't know. I think Eastern Europe's doing slightly better than the West, but that's really more or less a commentary on the state of Western civilization rather than like Eastern Europe doing anything that's so good and glorious. Although orthodoxy, it's kind of strong. And of course, that's like a real cradle. Like, you got Russian orthodoxy. I was watching Father Josiah Trenum because patristic nectar is what really like a real invaluable resource during my inquiry period because I'm a catechumen now. So I'm not an inquirer anymore. And then eventually I won't be a catechumen. I'll be baptized, God willing. But I still watch Patristic Nectar, and he made like a half an hour video essay on documenting Stalin's life and why it's so why he's so so bad. He's basically a very staunch atheist, and he basically imposed that onto Russia, and he had like so many martyrs for in the Russian church of because of what Stalin and his regime did. And this was something that's honored during the liturgy in the Russian church. Because I go to a Rokor parish, Russian Orthodox church outside of Russia. And that, commending the martyrs. And I was thinking, like, yeah, there's so many, you can't name them all. Whether that's during Vespers or a liturgy. And of course, the blood of the martyrs is the foundation of the church, or however that quote goes. Let's see. So, but that's a whole other discussion there. But yes, so while Nick Fuentes is an interesting character, and there's a bit of like, oh, I'd like to have his notoriety. I think, but thing is, I wouldn't want to not be the way I am now in order to get it, because I like. I don't know. I like having this more calm, measured presence. But the thing is, that's not what gets you up in the algorithm. Other side of the fence is saying Nick might be a plant. I honestly wouldn't disagree with that. And honestly, if you're doing Nick is most likely doing the Skittle stuff. So if like Nick saw me, he'd probably slide in my DMs and try to get me to get with him, and I would respectfully decline. But yeah, there's of course been the rumors of him being, into the homosexual stuff. And I'm not sure how true that is. And of course, like when you're unmarried, it becomes a lot easier for those accusations to be made and to hold water. I guess you could say that about me because like I'm a single guy. I've never been in a relationship. I'm not sure if I ever will be. Let's see. So he has a lot of information for no reason. Yeah, so he's either a plant or a useful idiot. It probably is a combination of both at this point, the way I see it. But Mike has bad news is saying the state has to be God, can't have the real God getting in the way. Yes, exactly. Is that it's really like it's either like man being his own God or the state being God. And of course, that's basically what Stalin wanted, is the state to have complete control over society. And when you've got religious people, especially Orthodox Christians who are very focused on the kingdom and serving Christ, you have to get rid of them, and you have to say that doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is serving the state. And if you don't serve the state as your God, then it's straight off to the gulags in Siberia. Let's see. Don't use the phrase "useful idiot" because he's fighting for the U.S. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think "useful idiot" is a very apt term. I mean, just think of all of the like 20-something-year-old and honestly 30-something-year-old women that have voted for Mamdani. I think "useful idiot" is the most apt term to describe those people. Because they're literally bringing in their own destruction, which is why I'm so glad I got out of New York. Even though I never lived in New York City. I was about like 90 minutes outside of New York City. I have some family that lives in New York City. I'm concerned for them. And of course, still my family, because you're just going to have this uptick in crime. It's going to trickle out to around the upstate and Long Island, most likely. So it's just not going to be a good situation for New Yorkers, which is unfortunate. But at this point, that is the whole thing. But yes, Garfield was saying, don't issue commands to defense. Yes, it is my stream. If I want to call someone a useful idiot, then I am going to do that. And then saying I'll do what I want. Thank you, Jojo. Okay, so yeah, this is the point where we agree to disagree. So that's the whole thing there. And we've been really talking about geopolitics, guys, but I feel like this is kind of like justified. This isn't like me saying we're talking about Bloodroof, and then I start talking about like the Council of Nicaea, or I start talking about Theodosius, or the the Macromonic Wars or the Gallic Wars or something like that. It's like, okay, this was like a justified like tandem, because a Great War of Separation is a military story. And we're talking about like the modern day military, which honestly I think is the point of media. So yeah, I like I said, I think it's related to the Great War. Even if I did ruffle some feathers, and I think I'm going to keep doing that, because again, I'm just going to be me, and not everybody. I'm a unique person, to put it lightly. So some people are just not going to find me appealing, which honestly, that's the thing you got to realize in life. I'm still pretty young. Like I said, I'm not even 30 yet, although I feel like I'm older than I actually am, especially now that I'm living on my own. But even before then, with like the responsibilities I had for the last couple of years, like it really matured me a lot. Of course, I look older than I actually am. So like I feel like I'm in my late 30s and my late 20s at sometimes. But one of the things you got to realize in life is that if you people say you got to be yourself, and if you're going to be yourself, now everyone is going to like that, because not everybody's going to find that appealing, and that's okay. Honestly, a lot of times it's less about you and less about them and their. It's less about you and more about what's going on with them and the way they perceive things, and you can really just turn the other cheek, and take it in stride. And of course, you can always use that information to kind of round yourself into a person that's better to deal with. Because sometimes, because for me, I'm a very awkward introverted person, so I can definitely use like being more sociable is definitely something I got to work on. But that is the that's the thing, is that sometimes people just don't want to give you that grace if you're like very awkward and introverted, because people just like have this like set way they want you to interact. And once you don't do that, then it's like, oh, I don't know, but that's all whole thing. Let's see. So Garfield was saying, sit in the quarter fence, come back when you're ready to be civilized. Let's see, but that's a whole thing there. But of course, like, I don't know, Garfield. I don't think Garfield's going to mute. Let's see. So you don't have a stand in your PvP PFP profile picture. Let's see. So Mike has bad news. Have you done any research into why Muslims are so heavily involved in social politics? Is the case both here and in the UK? So I haven't done any hard research, but Islam is a very totalitarian ideology. So Islam has this doctrine where you subjugate any non-believers. You either kill them, you either enslave them, basically, or you force them to be second-class citizens where they have to pay the jizya, as in like tribute money, to be part of the caliphate. And of course, that ideology lends itself very much hand in hand with socialism. So it's really just a good way to control society, socialism. And when you're a Muslim, that's what you really have to do in order to push the ideology onto people. And I think this is explicitly what some of the Islamists or the Mohammedans that were supporting Mamdani were basically saying, is that they want to claim New York for the Muslims. And if you turn New York into a socialist hellscape, you can, of course, use that power the state would have over the city, over New York, to implement Islam. And I think that's the reason why Muslims or I would say that's why they find that appeal. And of course, let's see. Other side of the fence is saying, I don't think every Muslim thinks like that. I would wholeheartedly agree. There are like what, a billion, nearly, I think maybe even nearly like, not like 2 billion, but over a billion Muslims. And a lot of them do not think about this way. Like your average Muslim in Indonesia is not thinking about this way. There's a lot of like very like people who are Muslim, people who are in Islam just because like that was the religion their parents raised them in. They just took them to the mosque every, I don't know, whenever you go to the mosque as every week, the services in the mosques, because I'm not familiar with the liturgical life of Islam. And of course, I'm familiar with, the Orthodox Christian, liturgy and the liturgical life there to a degree. Of course, I've learned a lot actually going. But anyways, that's aside the point. A lot of Muslims are just Muslims because of the cultural milieu that they are raised in, and they don't have this like grand plan of like subjugating the non-believers and establishing a caliphate and doing all these sorts of things. It's not like they're all like Osama bin Laden or like the Turks or anything like that. And I think it'd be very myopic to view it that way. And in the same way that like not every single Christian is a crusader or anything like that. But it is something that you do have a portion of people who are Muslim that have this ideology where they want to subjugate and reform Western society, or reform, or let's say regress Western society into being like a Sharia law completely controlled by Islamic jurisprudence. And that's something you can do if you have the powers of a socialist government. The amount of control that a social government would have over society would allow the Mohammedans to implement Sharia law and that level of control, because it's a very totalitarian ideology. So, Mike, to answer your question, that is why I think a socialist society would afford those Muslims that want to control society the amount of control they would need to do so. And I think that's putting it like as succinctly as I could. I feel like they've just found a movement they can hijack in order to get power. Socialists are in general retarded. Well, you're completely right there, Mike. And I think that's also a great way to put it. A lot of people convert to the Muslim religion, especially in prison. Well, actually, the funny thing, my favorite thing about Islam theology is that if you convert to Islam, you're called a revert, because like the natural state of everyone is to be a Muslim, and then you just don't become one. So basically, by that logic, which is the logic of Islam, Islam has the highest apostasy rate of any religion. So I apostatized from Islam in the last millennia, and I've got no plans of going back. But that's the logic that they use. So yes, I think there are appeals to Islam, but the thing is that people want to have this communion with God. They want their soul to experience eternal life. There's one way, only one way you can experience eternal life, and that is through the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, his sacrifice he made on his cross, the fact that he conquered death through his own death, right? It is not something you are going to get through Islam, but you've got a lot of people who are not theologically informed, and it's not like I'm like that. But Islam is able to present like the idea of Jannah, the idea of prayer life, the idea of spirituality, but it really doesn't have that depth and nourishment that Holy Orthodoxy does, or even I'll say Holy Orthodoxy, and then that I'll just leave it there. See, a lot of people in prison convert to Christianity. My uncles do a prison ministry. Yeah, that is certainly true as well. David Wood, I believe, converted to Christianity in prison. So saying a lot of people convert to this or that religion in prison isn't a good argument for the veracity of a religion. It's just something that happens. So I considered converting in 2022, but then I got into apologetics. Are you talking about Islam, Ram? Because I know you're Roman Catholic. And I would say, I would imagine, let's see, they pray all day. What are you saying? So yes, I know they pray 5 times a day, but I'm saying, like, the idea of Islamic spirituality, it's missing a lot. Like prayer is more than just saying words. That's one thing I've realized. It is having a humble heart and submitting yourself to God. Although I shouldn't even be talking about this because I'm just a catechumen. But anyways, but prayer is a lot more than just saying a bunch of words 5 times a day while you're pointing to Mecca. And of course, a lot of these religious traditions that Muslims have, they basically, Muhammad got them from the Jews, the pagans, and the Zoroastrians, and he just cobbled them together into this mishmash idea of a religion called it, they call it Abrahamic, but it's a very shaky foundation. Um, let's see. Muslims seem like the most closely to God than anyone, not the terrorists. Oh, I would disagree. They might seem like they're doing a lot for their religion, but I would say that very few people actually get close to God. I'm certainly about as far away from God as anyone can get, and I'm only going to get farther and farther away, it feels like, unfortunately. But just like I said, just doing certain things, it's not what's going to get you into heaven. It's what Jesus says in Matthew 7. He says, not everyone who comes to me who's saying, Lord, Lord, I did good works in your name. I cast out demons. I did miracles in your name. And he'll say, get away from me, you who practice lawlessness. So just doing things, even if you're doing them for the right person, is not going to get you into heaven. And that's a biblical concept. But that's again, I don't want to lecture people on theology. Let's see. So have you watched any videos on the Islamic dilemma? So Mike, I know what the Islamic dilemma is. So the Islamic dilemma is basically that the Quran affirms the Bible, affirms the Bible, but the Bible does not affirm the Quran. And again, if you read the Quran claims that Jesus wasn't crucified, even though there are a minority of the imams and the Islamic scholars that will make the argument where it's not saying that. But the mainstream opinion is that Jesus wasn't crucified. Another funny thing is that the Quran claims that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is also the same Mary who was the sister of Moses, even though they lived like almost 2 millennia apart from each other, like between around 1500 years or so. So yes, so there's a whole bunch of stuff. But the Quran affirms the Gospels. It says, the people of the book, like, judged by the Gospels. It affirms the Torah and the Gospels being inspired. But the whole thing is that they have to say that the Torah and the Gospel, which it's called the Injil, has been corrupted. And you can see like so many debates that like God Logic does. Mostly I see God Logic is the one who has a lot of debates with Muslims. Basically ask them, what is the Injil? Like, how can I read it? If I am a, let's say, Christian living in, the time when Muhammad is spreading the message, spreading the Quran, and I hear this, like, I can affirm what I'm saying with what came before. How do I know what came before? Well, I would go to the Gospel, go to the Torah. And the thing is that these are texts that are much more ancient than Islam. So the Gospels and the Torah, we have copies from well before Muhammad's ministry and after his ministry. So you can't really put the corruption argument. So that's the Islamic dilemma there, is that the Bible is very much something that does not affirm the Quran, yet the Quran affirms the Bible. So you either have to, as a Muslim, say that the Bible has been corrupted, which negates the claims of the Quran saying that it does. So the Quran is not this infallible book, or you have to say that the Bible is right and the Quran is invalidated. So either way, it's a lose-lose for that situation. And of course, the way Muslims view the Quran, they have this idea that the Quran is like the literal like word of Allah that was written. There's this idea that like the entire Quran is like in stone tablets in heaven next to Allah, and it's not the view. It's not the orthodox view of Scripture. It's not that like perfected, like in terms of of the Orthodox opinion on the Bible. Of course, like you'll have like the Protestants that will basically like you're if you're like a KJV onlyness, you'll think your King James Version Bible is like literally given to you by God, but it's a very minority opinion. So the scriptures is something that exists within holy tradition, and that is what was delivered to the saints, as Jude writes in his epistle. But the Mohammedans, they think the Quran was literally given to Muhammad. He transmitted it orally, and then it was perfectly preserved. Even though that is not the case when you look at it historically, and that's not even something that you could really argue from the traditional Islamic narrative. You have like Uthman burning copies of the Quran. You've got all these copies, and so much of the content of the Quran comes from the Old and even the New Testament, and even actually like Gnostic gospels, like the infancy gospel of Jesus and stuff like that, that were deemed to be heretical by the early church. So it's really, really, like I said, it's just a mishmash of a bunch of stuff, and that's what Islam is. So yes, there's a lot of similarity between Islam and Mormonism. So you can just describe, they're basically like the same. They're very similar in a lot of ways. But Merc Lounge is dipping out, so nice to have you, Merc Lounge. Hopefully you enjoyed this live stream. And we've been going for like over an hour now. It just flew by. I absolutely love that. And we've been talking about geopolitics. So but I think with Great War Separation Free, I just wanted to fire up a live stream, just talk about this. So we got 64 pages, which is definitely nice. And then, well, I guess what we can do, and you know what we ought to do, guys, is we ought to go over the covers. Of course, I'll do the Braxcast live as I always do. Let's see, open image, new tab, open image, new tab. Open image, a new tab, and open image, a new tab, and we'll go over these covers. So of course, cover A, if I can see the covers. Let's see, clear. I'm not sure if we got the covers. Oh, let's see. So let's see. I did get the book pack for this, as I usually do. I'm not seeing I always have a hard time finding who did the covers. So yeah, no. Yeah. So see a Joker. No, I'm not going to go over the covers, and then we're going to go over there. So let's see. We still got to do a cover C tier list. Yeah, I got to do some tier lists. I might do those I think I ought to do those as Braxcast specials. So. But definitely got to do some tier lists. Honestly, I could do like a retro cover and a cover C, and I think those would be two Braxcast specials to make because I want to do like the 10 videos thing. Definitely get that in. But anyways, I'm trying to find if I can even find the. Anyways, we'll just go over the covers here, and then I think we'll call it a night. So this is cover A. Of course, you got like this Gorilla Accept. I love something like this. You got like a Mummy Ninja here. So I love these Accept designs. I absolutely love this one. We'll go over to the next one. It seems like first appearance of Tigray and Ronnie Dodge. I'm assuming this is Tigray. Danger from Within. Introducing major Shroud's Accept team, Blitz, Dervish, Kirks, and Molini, Dekatic, Danzdora, Takizo, and Mobasa. This is probably Mobasa then. But the Blitz is interesting. Is it the same Blitz that we see in Horseman? Although it says introducing, and I think this is BLITZE and not BLITZ. So probably not, but that's a kind of interesting. Is it a Blitz? Is this Blitz related to the other Blitz that we know? I believe Blitz is the lady, like the neo-Nazi lady in Horseman. I always get those two mixed up. But yes, I think this is Mabasa. And this is, of course, the retro cover. And you got to love those retro covers. And we're past the point of no return. And then we've got cover C here. This is just the foiled and embossed cover of Brian Solari, with his hair. This, of course, a Kin and white cover, which is really nice. And then you got that shaved. I remember when a couple months ago in August, I gave myself a buzz cut. And I shaved off the beard. The Saskas were like, I'm going for that Brian Solari look. Well, I'm not anymore. I definitely don't have the Solari look anymore. I got my regular old. Oh no, I'm growing it out, and I like it. But probably at some point before I visit the family. I want to do that brain rot speak. Oh God, no, 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 no. I hate the like using fam, but it kind of makes sense as slang. But anyway, we got this cover of Harriet Stillman here. Absolutely fantastic. This is the cover D. Of course, you got the Lone Star and the emblem back there, and it does seem like, oh, you got the like the power pole. So definitely, it's like you got this destruction, but you got this like symbol of hope, and you got this, you know, kind of like Rosie the Riveter vibe going on. Definitely like this cover. It does seem like it might be a Jack Herbert cover, but anyways, those are the covers for the Great War of Separation, and it seems like we got a mecha ape involved. That is Mabasa, and yes, that is Isam's mom. That is Harriet Stillman. She's the same Harriet Stillman that is involved in or she's Harriet Stillman that is in the Ripazine. If you see Harriet's Kitchen, there's some recipes which I haven't made any of those. I kind of want to try those out. I think that'd be a cool thing to do. And then of course she is in the she is in Nice and Free, and she has a decent role in Nice and Free. And Ram is saying cover C is goated. I actually have to wholeheartedly agree with that. Of course, there's a Kane and White cover. Everything Kane and White does is fire. Let's see. Can I ask if Avery's sister knows if he's Isom? Yeah, I would say that he does. Or not he. I would say that she would know that he's Isom most likely. It's not like really explicitly stated, but he does go to her house like after he's superheroing around. So I would say it's like a most likely a known thing. But it's not like super explicitly stated. But I would have to like reread those scenes in Isom 1 just to make sure. But yeah, like Mike says, it's not entirely clear that she knows. It's kind of like implied that she knows. I'd say it's most likely the case. Although we haven't learned too much about Isom's like personal life, because you know Isom 1 and or I'd say Isom 1 was a bit all over the place in terms of introducing a lot. Of course, you know, as other side of the fence will say, it's a story about nothing. So we didn't learn anything about Isom in Isom number 1, supposedly. Let's see. But in Isom number 3, his mom says they were keeping it a secret from his dad and his sister. Probably the fact that he has powers. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it's kind of like implied that she knows, but it's not explicitly stated. So there is some room for interpretation there. But yeah, I would have to reread those specific scenes, and it could definitely be a possibility that it's not known that you know they have powers and such. Let's see. I don't think so. I mean, Avery's father doesn't even know that Harriet is an accept, which yeah, honestly, it does lend credence to that narrative that they don't know, and it's just that like Avery was getting himself involved in Darren's business, not that like he was an accept doing it. So I do think it's kind of like most likely she doesn't know, actually thinking back on it. And I think with that context, with you know the father not knowing that Harriet's an accept. So yeah, I honestly I would lean to them not knowing, but it kind of implied that maybe they know that something is up, they just can't explain what it is. Let's see. I get the feeling that she at least doesn't know what he has, or that he has powers. I guess that's what Mike is trying to say. But anyway, going for almost an hour and a half, and that time just flew on by, guys. Absolutely love doing these live streams. I always find them super fun. Even though, like, as much as I love doing these live streams, so much stuff happens on Friday nights, you know, for good reason. I kind of like feel conflicted with like, should I keep streaming at the slot because I think you guys like it, versus like it would be nice to kind of have like the ability to just go out on a Friday night and like do stuff with people, maybe actually socialize a little bit because there's stuff that goes on. But anyways, I do like doing these live streams. This has been a really good time slot for me. When I started live streaming like back in New York, and I started doing that, of course, there was like I feels like there's more for me to do up here because I got like more community and such. And I got like more of a reason to, you know, be invested in the community. But anyways, that's all besides the point. Unless there is anything else that anybody wants to talk about, we did go through the covers. Of course, I went on this rant on the military and geopolitics. I was debating JB for a good bit there. I think I turned him off from ever being a fan of me, which, you know, I'm fine with if, you know, my opinions turn you off, then that's just the way that it is. I can't really, I'm not going to water myself down or change myself to try and please everybody. But, hopefully, enjoys the content and comes back for other stuff. But regardless, hope you guys enjoy this one. People who are willing to stick around, of course, all the regulars. Mike has bad knees. Garfield, Ram, other side of the fence. See you guys in the chat all the time. We saw Merc, who I didn't see before. But anyways, always love having you guys in the chat. Always love just being able to talk Rippaverse. But I am going to put it there. Let's see. When he says that line about the niece, it seems that way. Seems that oh yeah. Seems that like she's figuring out that he has powers. Yeah. Yeah, so it kind of does seem like there's an implication that that she knows something is up. But it's not like explicitly stated. It's not like Mary Jane knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and then like helping him be Spider-Man, right? It's like an in between. It's a bit odd. It's something that needs to be explored more in the upcoming issues of Isom. I would say so, Isom 4 and such. So I think his niece might be the next one in the line. Yeah, I would most likely say that. It probably is the case, thinking on it. Be very interesting to see how that plays out. But again, that is something that needs to be explored in Isom. And again, I think a young Isom series would be really cool if Jack Herbert did that after finishing the Great War Separation. I think that could give a lot of context to that story. It says it skips a generation. I don't think it would skip a generation because Harriet has powers, and then Isom has powers, and that's not skipping a generation. I'm not sure if you read it, it's skipping a generation. I think it only goes for one member of the generation. But anyways, that is really everything that I've got to talk about for you guys. I've been going for a little over an hour. Usually once I get past that hour mark, it's I think a good place to cut it off. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, but I am going to end it here unless anybody has any pressing questions. I'm going to wait for a little bit. So but if not, I am going to end it right here. Or again, you guys can forever hold your peace. And I think that's it. You guys have a fantastic night. Have an awesome weekend. I will post a Braxcast that is more structured and less debatey about Great War Separation Freight. And I will be back next week to talk about whatever they decide to do next week with their Rippaverse, which I'm sure is going to be something. Lord have mercy on my wallet, if that's the case. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy this live stream. Joker is out.